Good morning, everybody. It's my first time here at GameComp. Very excited. And of course, like every event, we have to start off with technical issues. That's the best way to start any event. So anybody who comes after me no longer has any problems. So hopefully I don't jinx anybody later. How many people in here knows about AGORA Gaming Partners in our company? One, two, three, four. Okay, it's not that many. Great. Usually when I come to these events, I recognize a lot of faces, and I don't this time, so that's really good. And today we're going to talk about closing deals in 2025. As a lot of you know, it's a very tough market out there right now. Lots of layoffs, tough to find money. So we're going to walk through what the state of the market is, some things you have to think about, and we're also going to explain the differences between publishers and VCs very shortly. Now, normally I walk on stage back and forward, but I have a static mic here, so we'll see how this works out. So AGORA Gaming Partners, we're an investment bank / advisory firm. What that means is that we help you with selling your company, buying companies if that's something you want to do, finding a publishing deal, or raising money, whether it's angels, VCs, private equity, etc. Now, I am Asian-based. I've been in Thailand for 11 years, but I've mostly been working with Korean and Chinese companies. So I've never worked a day in my life in the Western market. My partner, who we'll get to in a second, is based in Canada, so we do cover the global kind of market, but we do have an East meets West kind of scenario where we can help you, especially in Asia. It's something that is one of our priorities. We also don't work with a lot of studios, which means we don't represent hundreds of games. We represent a very small amount of companies. So here's the team, the 5 core members. In total right now we're actually 11, but we're only showing 5 faces for today. So it's myself, Jock, and Lily here who are partners. Lily used to work at NetEase and ByteDance, and she is our go-to contact for everything in China. I usually run Korea, Japan, and of course also the Western market. But for the last 11 years I've been focused on Korea and Asia in general. And then Jock, my partner, is the investment banker. He's worked in traditional banking. He's worked for Zordix as head of M&A. So we cover basically all spectrums from fundraising, publishing, and acquisitions. Mateus and Titus here, they're the ones making sure that everything runs smoothly. But this time, they forgot to send the presentation to the organizer. So I'm going to have to slap them around when I get home. Because that's why we're 15 minutes late. It's, of course, my fault, but, you know. So, these are the topics, as I mentioned, state of the VC and M&A market, state of the publisher market, understanding each stakeholder, because I think a lot of studios don't understand what a VC is, understand the returns they need to make, which is why when you're talking on LinkedIn and all the social media, is why can I not find investment? Hopefully I can shed a little bit of light. Quickly on the data room, stakeholders, and then deal terms, expectations, and timeline. So let's start off with VC funding. This is 2024 numbers. 2025 looks a little bit better. It's slightly improved, but not to any point where we can see that, okay, now the market's going to be amazing again. Not most, but a lot of this money here in 2022 was Web3 related, like Web3 gaming. And as most of you know, most of those companies are dead by now. And I wish that money had gone to, you guys or Web2 companies, but that's not my choice. And we are also going to get to that a little bit later in the presentation. Why you cannot find money is also because all of these VCs lost money, which means they didn't get any returns and they cannot reinvest again. So as you can see here, Q4 in 24 is the worst number in the last 4 years. It is looking pretty grim. Q1 this year was slightly higher, and Q2 is going to be a little bit higher as well. But generally speaking, we're still below the sub 500 million here per quarter. The amount of deals is actually not that different. As you can see, the amount of deals is roughly the same as 4 years ago. So it just means that there's less deals with lower budgets rather than a couple of years back. But of course, there in 2022, you can see it was double or even triple the amount of deals that is happening right now. What's also interesting is you can see that most of this investment is actually early stage funding, not mid stage or late stage. Why is that, you wonder? Because nobody made it there. Or they actually made revenue and they didn't need to raise again. So again, going back to the point, why is there no funding? They haven't exited, they haven't done follow-on runs, which means they cannot come back and give guys like you cash. In terms of global, I am very happy to see that Asia is coming up there. There is so much talent in Asia, and it's just not been finding money at all since forever. But as you can see now, it's actually at the same level or even higher than the amount of VC deals here in Europe. Of course, that's not good for you guys, but for me, being based in Asia, it's good to see that finally they're getting some money as well. Still not enough. But it's also sad to see that Europe is kind of going down. M&A side is actually as active as ever. You can see that, yeah, the numbers are down, blah, blah, blah. But in general, deal size, I'm sure you guys have seen billion-dollar acquisitions on the market that you read in the news. M&A is as active as ever. And for Agora, that is our primary revenue generator as well. Most of our deal flow right now is M&A. For good and bad, there are good transactions happening, but there are also a lot of bad ones where people are buying companies that are in rough positions and that cannot have a high valuation. So it's not all great, but at least there are buyers out there that is continuing. Something that is really interesting, which I don't have in this presentation actually, is that the private equity money, are you guys familiar with private equity? Yeah. So private equity used to be only 7% of all funding in games. It's now 35%, which means strategics and VCs and other companies have really just scaled down while private equity is up and coming. And of course, if you are familiar with private equity, they're a little bit more hands-off than other types of companies. So yeah, this is the state. Very gloomy, not great, you know. But the thing is that one thing that is going to be happening no matter what is right now in 26 and 27, there is not enough games. Which means the publishers that are looking at you guys, the investors that are looking at the market today, not enough studios are funded to have big enough catalogs for everybody in 26 and 27. That has to change. Otherwise, you know, Papa shareholder is going to be very angry with these publishers. So eventually, they need to start opening their wallets and signing more games, or there's going to be a significant lack in the industry. When that happens, I don't have a crystal ball. I really have no idea. Of course, we are more connected than usual people, and we're behind the scenes trying to figure this out all the time. But half the people I talk to is like, oh, it's already better. The other half is like, wait a year. So I really don't know. I hope it's soon. We'll find out. So, understanding the stakeholder. Now, a lot of my slides today will sadly have a lot of text, but it's necessary just so you can screenshot it. I'm not going to read off the slide in complete form. So to understand the publisher thesis, like what are they looking for, what kind of returns are they looking for, and actually what is the net revenue per copy, and how much are they spending that you are not aware of. Generally speaking, if we look at a development funding budget of 1 million USD, so let's say that they invest 1 million USD in one of your companies, there usually will be a marketing budget of 250 to 500. It depends on the game and like what kind of marketing strategy it will be. For the purpose of this exercise, I did 500K. Internal cost is budgeted inside of the publisher around 25% usually, which means when they give you this kind of money, there's $300,000 of additional cost from their side that you don't get to see, and that in 95% of the publishing deals, they won't recoup. There are a couple of publishers out there that likes to recoup that number, which I'm not a fan of, but that's how the market is. And let's assume that that means that the total publisher investment is 1.8 million units. And if you then look at the BEP, which means break-even point, you see 180,000 units, and you're probably wondering, that math doesn't make sense. It should be, half of that. The reality is, if you sell your game at $19.99, the net per copy on average is $10. What actually enters the publisher's bank account? They're not seeing $20, they're not seeing 15 because you're like, but Steam takes 30%, right? Taxes, refunds, regional pricing. In Asia, we can't afford the full price, so we usually get 30 to 50% discount. All of this come together at an average price in any publisher's model to 50 or even 45% of the price you see on Steam. That means when they give you 1.8 million in investment, the break-even point is 180,000 units. That's what they need for them to break even, not you getting your salaries and starting to recoup your next game, etc. And then statistically, less than 5% of all games sell less than 100,000 units. Sell over 100,000 units. So that's not a lot of games that succeed, right? Which means for those of you asking budgets over $1 million, there's a very small chance that you will actually succeed, statistically speaking, right? You have to get into the mindset of the publisher and the investor to understand why they're negotiating so hard with you. So again, $19.99 equals 10, okay? Now, a publisher usually looks at a minimum of a 3x in their forecast as a base case scenario, which means if they're going to sign you, they're going to look at 550,000 units as the base case over 3 years. If they don't think your game can sell 550,000 units, that's why they're not signing you. So keep that in mind when you're negotiating. You got to be a lot of your guys' pitch decks, your numbers are completely off. When it comes to break-even points, when it comes to the potential of the game, your competitor benchmarks, when you put Elden Ring and Hades and all these games in the pitch decks, right? Of course, the publisher will look at this as well, but their job is to statistically make smart investments. They need to have a large portfolio of different risks. Some of your games will be no units or 100 times. Some of the games will be like, okay, we feel like we can kind of hit the middle here. So hopefully that helps you understand a little bit about what the publisher is looking for and the math that they have to do. The higher the number, the more investment on marketing, the more investment on internal cost. Now the VC. Here is where almost everybody misunderstands a VC. Most of you who complain on LinkedIn, and I'm not targeting you guys here, when you talk about VCs, only VCs, yeah? You're like, why are they not investing in my indie studio? I'm going to give you a very simple answer. Most of you, when we give you money, and sorry, maybe I should have given you a little bit more background about myself earlier, since you guys don't know Agora. I've done 64 investments through my last company, all in indie studios, all people like yourself. Personally, I've invested in 9 companies. One of them is actually right here. Sadly, they had to shut down, but Aymeric and I have known each other forever. And this is just one example. And I can actually use his example to give you a real-world case study. So Aymeric, we gave money, I believe, in 2019. 2020. 2020, right? So we gave him money in 2020. The game launched in 2023. This is normal, like 2, 3, sometimes 4 years for an indie studio to develop a project, right? When we gave Aymeric money, we made it very clear, if the first game doesn't succeed, that's fine. Because our thesis, we weren't a VC on paper. We were a private company investing off our cash, not on a fund level. Which means if the game doesn't do well, he can make another one, and 3, 4 years later, he launches the next one, and I'm still okay. A VC can't do that. Most VCs have a structure that's called 5+2 or 7+2. This means that they need to deploy all the capital in the initial period and exit in the remaining period. So if we take Aymeric's example, I never could have pitched him to a VC in 2020. I could have done it in 2023 because that means his game is about to launch. He has another chance, he can raise some money. And 2026, somebody buys him. That's a VC potential case because they don't took that initial risk that I did, but there is an exit story here to be made. So most of you, when you're in that early stage, it will take you, like statistically speaking, 64 investments, 6 to 7 years to have something that can actually generate enough money for a VC to exit. That's too long. So when you're looking at your own budgets, your own plans, you are not fit for a VC. To explain it in a bit more numbers, they aim for a 3x gross MOIC, which means multiple on invested capital, which means if they invest 100 million, they need to return 300 million, take their fees, etc., and then give the money back to the investors, which results in a roughly 20 to 30% net IRR over a 10-year fund lifetime. So now let's continue on the indie examples. We invest, let's call it 10 to 30 companies. On average, 1 to 2 of those will actually make it. And if we now use indie as an example, right? Most of you won't generate $100 million in returns. You'll generate like 10, 20 million, which is great numbers. And let's say that you generate 10, 20 million and I sell you and your company and I exit. Oh, sorry, that sounded wrong. Sell the company. That's not enough to return 300 million, even if you have 10 to 20 million dollars in revenue. So the indie scenario for a VC doesn't work. And that's why they're investing in all these AAA, ex-Ubisoft, ex-Blizzard, ex-whatever, because in their mindset, oh, they have made billion-dollar successes if I get 2 of those. If I get 1 Apex Legends in my portfolio and 1 Manor Lords in my portfolio, I can return that 300 million. I completely disagree with this mindset, to be clear. I don't think your resume means shit in gaming. Sorry for my bluntness. I've seen indie developers who have no clue how to run a company make an extremely successful game. But that is the VC mindset. If they've done it before, they can do it again. And I need 100, 200, 300 million dollars in revenue to get my return, to pay my investors. So if you're looking at VC funding before your first game, stop doing that. Talk to angels, people like myself. Like I mentioned, I've done 9, I'm poor right now, started a new company. but I've done 9 investments. There are plenty of people like myself who's willing to give you 100, 200, 300K maybe in angel checks. Then you can find a publisher or you self-publish. And for your next game, you can approach someone like a VC. Again, I'm not saying, I don't agree with this mindset, but that's how they think. Mathematically speaking, it does not make sense on average to invest in you guys as a VC. Okay? So yeah, if we take another example, if half the portfolio dies and the other half returns 2 to 3x, it does not reach the return on capital they need to provide the investors. Not even if half of you succeed. So it's a very tough model to run as a VC. And I have a boring example down there if you want to look at that. But yeah. So hopefully that gives you a little bit more on understanding the stakeholders, again, what they're looking for and the numbers. I have many talks on just this one slide built out, and you can Google me and find some of these online. I think I have 5 or 6 online. Okay, so publishers. Where are the publishers right now? This is real data. So this is us. We have relationships with practically every publisher in the industry. These are interviews I did with them. I'm not allowed to use names, but you know, we have a pretty good reputation, so hopefully you trust this is real. So let me tell you exactly where the market is today. 80-ish% of all publishers are currently in the sub $1 million market, which means 80% of everybody you speak to cannot afford $1 million or more. Usually that means $1 million on their side, development funding, marketing, and internal costs, which means the actual investment they can give you is $500,000 to $700,000. That's it. That's 80% of the market today. For the later stages, the 1 to kind of 3 million, it's only about 10 to 15% right now. I can count on 2 hands the amount of people that can do this in the West. In Asia, there is actually tons of money. Korea right now is printing cash. China is printing cash. Southeast Asia is doing pretty well. But they don't know you guys. They haven't done a lot of investments in the West. That's something we hope to change, because they have all this money, but they don't know how to spend it in the West. Recently, NeoWiz has announced a couple of publishing deals in Poland, I think even a French studio, if I'm not mistaken. NCSoft's done a couple of investments in, I think Julian Vera, Moonrover, I think was NCSoft. So it is happening, but very, very slowly. So I'm only counting the Western publishers here. In Asia, there is money, but it's tough to get it. And at the 5 million and above, they barely exist anymore. It's Korea and like 5 Western names. It's really tough to find budgets above this. So let's quickly dig into where do you have to be. If in the sub 1 million category, the kind of keywords right now, what they're looking for, is replayability and systemic games, which means no 20 to 30 hour experiences, no narrative experiences. They're looking for city builders, card builders, things you can come in and play over and over and over. Just good mechanics, not much narrative. This is what they all want. I didn't put this in the slide, but if my memory serves me right, 70% of all of those publishers wanted replayability and systemic. Like pretty much all of them wanted something like this. A good and a bad example is Dave the Diver, because the example, what I mean here is that in Dave the Diver, it's actually an extremely simple game, but they've done it very smartly where every 1 or 2 hours they introduce a new mechanic. So you just want to keep playing, or a new weapon, or a shark, or a new boss, and then they did the Godzilla DLC, right? Like what the hell is that? I thought it was stupid when the game came out. My wife ended up playing 150 hours of that game, so clearly it works. And I also really, really like it. So replayability and systemic. Now the good thing is that most of these games can be made relatively cheaply. They can be made under 1 million in budgets. I mean, Manor Lords was way below that initially. In the 1 to 3 million stage, you need to have a late stage demo or a vertical slice, or don't bother. I can tell you that, so I just did something which counters this, but I spent 9 months pitching a sequel of an extremely successful game with 8 digits in profits, and I finally orally signed it last week after 9 months of not having a demo, even though it was like, if any publisher or VC looks at this case, looks at all the numbers, it's a no-brainer. The answer was always no demo, no deal. And that was a $5 million game, but the studio was investing half, so it was 2.5, 2.5. Very fair kind of setup. So it took me forever, so the contract's not signed yet, so we'll see if next time you see me, I'll be happy or I'll be sad. Things can always happen. Now in the 5 million and above, it's only vertical slice and plus. Nothing else. They will not speak to you unless you are an extremely successful studio where you just have such a track record that you can do it again. In total, this data was over 60 publishers over the last 3 to 6 months. And I'm actually keeping this slide in all of my presentations moving forward and updating it every quarter, because I speak to publishers all the time, so I'm just going to keep this and update it. Okay, so yeah, summary. Publishers want to de-risk a lot. They want a lot of projects, high, medium, low risk, mix of everything, and they're looking for a 2 to 3x. Perfect fit for people like yourself, where it makes sense financially speaking. VCs needs to hit it big. It's not a matter of, oh, maybe. They have to pay back all that money. It's not a choice, they have to. And that's why a solid company like yourself, let's say that you're only looking for 500K, but your maximum revenue threshold for that particular genre and game is 3 million, you are not VC investable. Period. You will not fit in this category. So keep that in mind. There are outliers. There are something called micro VCs, but we don't have time to go into that today, which have a longer period and are okay to be in that category. But there's very, very little of them. Okay, so let's talk about preparing your case. Again, a lot of text, but so how do you stand out in today's market? How are you more prepared? You simply show up with more research, of course, a later stage demo that we already talked about. And these are some of the things you should look at. Key thing is target audience, okay? Target audience is not your new zoo slides 25 to 35 male Western people. That is a bad slide, okay? What I mean by this is that if you think about it, Thailand is a very small market as an example. It's about $90 million PC console, if I remember correctly. If you grab 10% of that market, that is still 9 million USD. That's a lot of cash. So if you have a game that is perfect for Thailand, but you don't know about the rest of the world, I can still invest in that because that small audience is enough for me and you to make a lot of money back. So what publishers and investors are looking for is like, what is the player base you're targeting? Not necessarily the country or the age or the gender. It's like, how will you reach this target audience that will generate a return for everybody involved? Focus on that rather than a more broad spectrum of amount of consoles, PCs, etc. So what games do they enjoy? What features do they like? You know, so if you look at a Manor Lords player, there is public data to see what other games do Manor Lord players own. You can actually compare the data sets of something like this. My favorite website is Game Discovery Co., if you guys are familiar. It's a free newsletter that you should pay for. It's $100 a year. It's amazing. And they have a back-end platform where you can literally look at all of this kind of stuff. You can put comparables between games. You can look at ownership. It's an amazing place to look at. So focus more on target audience and monetization mindset. Identifying competitors. We all have a competitor slide in our decks, right? You do your best. At the end of the day, publisher will have a different opinion. I'll have a different opinion. We don't spend a lot of time on this. And stay informed what's going on. So right now I mentioned that the most easy thing to sign is replayability in systemic games. Doesn't mean you can make those games or want to make those. So you can look at other genres to be clear. It's just that's what's trending right now. That's how you get signed easier. Again, doesn't mean it's the right thing for you. I've used this example for 10 years because I love this example. So a long time ago, I consulted for Tencent and Garena. I don't know if you guys have heard of this game. It's only the highest grossing game of all time. It's called Strike of Kings in Europe, which you probably didn't hear of, Arena of Valor in Southeast Asia, and Honor of Kings in China. It has grossed billions and billions of dollars. They might be number 2 now, but they were number 1 for many years. They tried to launch in Europe because they were like, we're printing cash all over Asia. So of course Westerners will buy our game, right? Using the example I just said, because they looked at the global market, Western players play Dota, League of Legends, so of course they'll play a mobile version of League of Legends, right? Makes perfect sense. Tencent launched with a lot of money, and they had 100,000 DAU, 150 in North America, and they shut down a couple months later. It's not as black and white as genres, what people like. You really need to dig into the general audience. And that's why I always like this one, because it's a great example of they messed up. You know, they thought we Westerners would like a mobile game on the phone, and we didn't, right? But they're still doing amazing business in Asia, and the same thing can go for you. Your game doesn't have to succeed globally, just has to hit 1, 2, 3 markets, and that's enough money for everybody. Okay, so an example, I'm using the most obvious one, Hades. It's a simple one, right? What is this? It's all genders. I mean, it's a very simple game to play. You learn the mechanics quickly. It is a single purchase price, no microtransactions, easy to use. It's for people who enjoy Greek mythology. Greek mythology is a global phenomenon. It's not something that only Westerners like. Asians know about Greek mythology as well. And it has challenge, obstacles, it's replayable, and it has humor in it, when you're showing up and you're meeting the various gods, right? So this is an example of how you hit the global market. None of us are going to be able to do this with our first game, right? It's extremely hard to find a game that hits everything. But as an example, you want to build a similar structure like this for your game. What are the genders? If it's gender relevant, it might not be. It could be for everybody. What's the income level? Is it like low purchase price? Is it medium? Is it high? What are the interests of your players that you're targeting? Personality traits. So for Hades, right? Persistent, wanting to get to Hades and killing Hades, For me, I kill Hades like 15 times because I just want to beat him over and over. Strategic thinkers and dark humor. So try to build something like this in your pitch deck where you explain the actual target personality and gamer that you want to sell to. Oh, I don't know what happened here. Okay. Well, that's too bad. So let's pretend for a second here. So this is, again, Hades. And I wanted to make a point that only 40% of all the copies were sold to English-speaking people. The other 60%, where there were country names, and they magically disappeared, are non-English speakers, right? So they made 60% of their revenue outside the Western markets, even something like Hades. So, repeating again, it is a global market. You don't need to hit it. Okay, so now let's take an example. So you've built your target audience. You've looked at its personality traits, the purchase price, etc. All right, who or what should I sign with? What publisher? This is an example of Game Discovery Co. Again, I have a lot of other tools, but I wanted to make it simple for you guys, one place. The first thing you do is that, okay, I want to work with Raw Fury. This is Raw Fury. Okay, so you go into Game Discover Co., you click Raw Fury, and now you can see all of the games they've published, their all-time high CCUs, their reviews, their gross revenue per game, and you're like, does this fit my personality trait? Because let's assume that you have a narrative title that fits Raw Fury very well, and you go into checking Raw Fury's portfolio, but none of their narrative games sold. Would you still want to work with them? Probably not. These are simple things you can do to save yourself time, because a lot of developers pitch everybody. If you do this research beforehand, you can narrow that list down to maybe 10, 20 publishers or investors, and really figure out who's the best fit for you. Which also means when you're having meetings with said publisher, you can be like, I looked at your whole portfolio, you're amazing at narrative games, look at my personality traits and my audience, we're a perfect match. Much easier conversation than I'm pitching 50 people, right? All of this data is free, by the way. If you paid $100 per year, you get more data, but you can find this anytime. So do this kind of research, and if you have what we like to call a tier one, like the publisher that you really, really want to work with, have this slide in there. Add an extra slide just for Raw Fury and be like, we're a match. Look at your data, look at mine. This makes perfect sense. And it will be a nice conversation to have. I can see that I'm running out of time and I have a lot more slides left, so I'll try to speed up. So what do we look at, investors and publishers? Skill set diversity, what does that mean? One of my investments, so I didn't invest in the studio, but I invested in the company who invested in the studio. For some reason, they decided to invest in a company with 4 programmers and nothing else. And I would not have approved that if I was part of the decision-making committee. So my point here is that we want to see teams that have different skill sets. Like, I'm very good at publishing deals, I'm good at raising money, but I'm not a banker, right? I'm not the guy sitting with an Excel and can build all these amazing models. That's my partner. We have skill set diversity in our company. Titus and Mateus, they run all of our events. Lily has China and also an extremely experienced background with those developers. AGORA's team, none of us are the same. And we'll continue to hire people that adds value to our company. Same thing should be for you guys. You should find co-founders and partners and employees that adds value to other processes. Proven track record, if you have it. Honestly, as I said, for me, it doesn't matter much. It's okay if you don't have a previous game. We can still look at it. I hate the word USP. It's impossible to find a USP today. Like, good luck finding something that you're like, oh my God, I came up with this. And I'll be like, nope, there's game 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, same thing. But an USP could also mean that you took the Hades idea and you added 3 new mechanics that improves the game and makes me want to buy that as well. You know, it could be something new and fresh to a previous game. Doesn't have to be an entirely new genre or something. Scalability and market potential. Now, this word is a bit fake in a way where it's the return on investment on your game, not the fact that it can make $1 billion. If I look at your game versus the money I will give you, can I make 3 times my money back if I'm a publisher? That's all that matters in market potential. And ideally, if it does really well, I can make 5, 7 times the money back. You do not need to make $1 billion idea. You just need to make all of us money. That's the goal, right? We want to keep making amazing games, and we want to get paid doing so. And financial responsibility and planning, a lot of you fail here. Actually, French developers are generally quite good at this one. Asian ones are not. They usually lie about their salaries, you know, bump them up a little bit and stuff like this. So we know, you know, don't lie about it. We want everybody to have a good salary. You can afford everything you want to do in your life, you know, your kids and your rent and everything. You need to have real salaries in there. Don't lower them as well. If I'm an investor and the only thing I can think about is, can they make rent next week? You won't be focusing on the game. You'll be focusing on your livelihood. That's not what I want to see. So be responsible in this financial planning. It's as bad to see low salaries as it is to see high salaries, okay? So yeah, ammo in negotiations. Of course, your pitch deck, that's simple. The background of your company, what you're gonna use the money for, the roadmap, where are you today? Where are you gonna go? And how much do you need to get there? And of course, add some buffer, guys. None of you have ever been on time. None of my investments have ever been on time. You are not on time. Everybody. It's just how it works, you know? Make sure you have some buffer in there. And of course, why should we work with you? You won't have time to make 30 individual pitch decks about why you want to work with somebody, but the tier 1 always adds something about why they're a good fit for you. It will really help your negotiations. So tier 1 list for you was like 10 publishers, I think, if I remember, that we had, something like that. Yeah, for Dordon. Yeah. No, not tier 1. Okay, anyway, so smaller list of tier 1s, and then there's the tier 2s and the tier 3s, so to speak, that you will potentially want to work with, but it's not the best fit. And of course, what kind of company you want to be. Now, for publishers, they only care about sequels, what's your goal with the IP. For me as an investor, who are you? What do you want to be? What do you want to build? Like, you know, with Aymeric and the company, was building amazing, artful games. You know, they had a very clear vision of what they wanted to build, so it was easy for an investor to see what the future would be. If you have playtests, if you have data, Discord channels, of course add that in. Whether it's 50 people, 100, or 2,000. Doesn't matter. It's always good. This you can just take a picture of. It's an example. No more than 12 slides in your first deck, okay? Not 50, not 100, 12. That's all I want to see for the first meeting. I only want to know, when I first meet you, do I want to know more? Is this interesting? I don't want to listen to you for an hour when 15 minutes into it, I'm like, nope, this is not for me. Then I can spare you time too. I can be very honest and say, oh, it's not a fit for me. But it could be a fit for this publisher. You should talk to them. You should talk to this investor. You know, I'm happy to give you that advice. So 12 slides, so that there's time for us to discuss, for me to ask questions, hopefully for you to ask questions to me. If the whole meeting is spent on me asking you questions, then you clearly don't know what I am and what I want to do. And that could be okay for a first meeting, but generally speaking, try to research your meetings you're going to meet, right? Okay. So, next. All right. So, we talked a lot about data and where we are, and I want to show you today when can you find money in today's market? So, in the past, in 2020 to 2022, you could get money quite easily in concept or prototype phase. This was actually very doable in 2020. Nowadays, so you can see in the top where it says low chance, not easy. I just gave you an example of an extremely successful game where the sequel was almost impossible. Very low chance if you're that early. If you have community and wish lists, so if you have an early prototype, but 50,000, 100,000 wish lists, you have something to prove, it goes into a low to medium chance. It's still not high, but you have a higher possibility. Which is why there's a social media icon here. You should start already in the concept and prototype phase to at least talk a little bit about your product and try to get some wish lists. Today, I'm surprised to say that even with a vertical slice, it's still only a medium chance. Still, it used to be a high chance. It's not anymore. There is not enough money in the market to fund all of you. So even if you have a vertical slice, you're in the medium range. If you have an alpha, if you have a beta, if you're like 15 to 18 months from launch, you're in the high chance category. This is where publishers sign games nowadays. Again, this is not my opinion. This is based on those interviews I showed you earlier. This is what they're looking at nowadays. And the thing is, there's a lot of games out there as well. So they do have options to look at. Oh, wrong way. All right, so I call this a bad, no, I'm not good at titles, I'm not creative. Book of Understanding, where are we? So VC money is practically non-existent for young and early teams, barely exists. You can find angel checks, you can find micro VCs, you can find banks that help you. BPI here in France is very good at helping you out. I don't know the rest of the banks, but BPI I have worked with before with American and others. Works really well. You technically need a vertical slice or later stages to start pitching. Exceptions can happen. Like it is possible to get money earlier, but very, very hard, which means don't spend $5,000 traveling to GDC if you have a prototype. It's better to come to a French event or something like this, something cheaper until you have a vertical slice or later. You need to have a fully prepared data room. What does that mean? It means pitch deck, budgets, breakdowns, GDDs, as much data as you can provide. So at the moment they see it, they like the pitch deck, they will instantly be, okay, I am ready to talk more. Let's talk to my producer, let's talk to my marketing team, let's proceed to something we call stage 2 due diligence. So once you pass the interest level, you move into stage 2 when they will do due diligence on the company. You ideally, it's not a must, but I recommend it, do proper researching on the publishing partner or the investor you want to speak to, as I mentioned. Those extra little details really helps. But you don't have time to do it for everybody, I understand. So 5 to 10 per event, and the rest you do a generic pitch. It's okay. But it really does help. And of course, you need to be smart in your go-to-market plans. You need to find ways to de-risk yourself and the publisher. It's not fair. What I'm telling you guys here today is not like, what I would like the industry to be. It is where we are, okay? So don't take these words as Pontus is telling you, you need to do this. It's just a state of things, right? Ideally, we go back to 2020 and we fund your concepts and your prototypes and life is easier. But I don't see that happening, honestly, ever again. There are way too many developers now. There are a lot of grants in the world so people can get to that prototype or vertical slice stage. I don't think we'll ever go back to 2020 levels, sadly. Hope I'm wrong. And okay, so negotiating terms, and then I think we have 5 minutes for Q&A if there's some questions. So you have a lot of flexibility talking to investors. Valuations have dropped a lot. You have to have more flexibility. People don't value IP. You can show up with the fanciest art or whatever you have. It doesn't mean anything. The investors will not value it until you have a playable. IP itself is not worth much before launch, sadly. And not in Excel sheets either. So don't have high expectations, but you can come up with new structures. So I mentioned how it's hard to find VC money. There's other money out there. And instead of just selling equity, you can sell a portion of your rev share in the game. You can sell that, after my game sells 100,000 units, I'll pay you back X amount of money. You can try to de-risk the investors that they get to see some returns earlier. This requires a longer discussion, but generally speaking, you can try to be more flexible. Then you can still find some. Publishers have become a lot more harsh in their terms. I see 100-0 examples a lot more than I used to. It used to be 80-20 as the standard, maybe even 70-30, but now it's usually 100-0. So what I usually say to a publisher that wants that, I'm like, okay, I'll accept that if you give you 6 months of extra cash. Because it takes 3 months for the initial sales of the game after launch, and then the Steam has to pay them, and then in the contract with the publisher, they can pay you 45 business days after the cash is in their bank. So it's like 5 months after launch, you actually see the first dollar. So if they want 100-0, you better give me 6 months of cash extra. Again, I prefer the 80-20, 70-30 route, but if they're pushing you for 100-0, ask 3 to 6 months extra cash. It's totally fair. They should not have objections to this. Because if they do, they don't believe in your game. But yeah, so 70-30 is our usual target pre-recoup for all of the studios that we work with. We think that's fair. Also, of course, depends on how much did the studio invest versus the publisher. If the publisher is spending 100% of of the investment, I probably won't ask 70-30, right? The deals post-recoup has started to normalize, 50-50. It used to be 60-40 or even 70-30 to the developer after recoup. It's almost always 50-50 now. I've been able to negotiate with 90% of our deals better than that, but it's tough and it takes a little bit of time. So what you can do instead, if they're like, okay, 50-50 only, what I started doing is I'm like, okay, but then I want performance tiers in the contract. So if I sell 100,000 units, I want 50,000 non-recoupable cash. 300,000 units, I want 100,000 cash. So you add bonus performances in there, which is technically like rev share, right? You just get it at certain KPIs. And they do not recoup them. It's straight cash in your pocket. And surprisingly, I have suggested this 3 times so far. It's been accepted every time. So I came up with this 6 months ago, and it seems to work. Yeah, the later you pitch, the better your terms are. Always been the case. Doesn't change. And publishers, this is really good for me, I love this, have started becoming way more open in region and territory splitting, which means you can have a Western publisher and an Asian publisher, and they can split the cost. So let's say that a potato publisher over here can only afford 1 million in cash. Your game is 1.5. Tell them, okay, why don't you get the Western rights for 1 million, and I'll find a publisher for the other 500K for Asia. This has also become, I used to do this 10 years ago. It has become a lot more normal right now, and I really like that. It's also better for your game because an Asian publisher knows the Asian market. They know what to do. So this is, I'm very happy to see. So, final point on this, talk to industry advisors. People like myself, I will review your publishing agreement for free because I don't want you to get fucked and then write on Reddit 5 years later, oh my God, I signed the worst deal ever. And there are like 100 more Pontuses out there that will help you. So please don't sign a publishing agreement until you speak to a lawyer and you ask somebody in the industry. And of course, if we take the Raw Fury example, right? Talk to the studios they signed before. Make sure that those studios are happy in the genre that you made. So do some research about this. I hope that's the last slide. It is? Okay. So that's us, AGP, and yeah. Thank you. So, questions? Anybody? Oh, a lot? Okay, start. Oh, by the way, as a final point, if you want to pitch us a game, it's the scouting email. It goes to everyone, not just me. I am very slow right now, so that one's better.
Thank you for the presentation. I had a small question about pitch deck, which is, I've seen, you just said, and I've seen the same advice online about keeping it short, but when you do an initial, especially in an event like this, you do an initial reach out, usually do you want to put more information on that first pitch deck you send?
If you're doing like a meet to match request, 5 to 10 slides, a trailer is enough. You know, like I want to know how much money do you need? Whatever pitch deck you want to send me, but I won't read a long one, and a trailer. And I'm happy. Then I'll be like, okay, I like it, I'll accept, and let's speak at GameCon.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Next one. Over there. Oh, over there.
Thank you, like for all the details and tools to use. I wanted to ask in terms of team growth, like team growth potential, is that something that's considered as an opportunity as an investor or more like a risk? Because internally I would see myself like managing, 10, 15 people is going to be different than 5.
It depends. Like, so, at the end of the day, it's about what do you want to build? I am okay to invest in a studio that only wants to be 6 people forever. I want to make better and better games with higher potential. And I'm also okay to invest in a studio that wants to grow into 100 and have 3 games at the same time. It's a very different investment case. For that smaller studio, I know I'm not going to make 100x when you get purchased, but I can make good money. Like if you're just going to low budgets, fast to market, a lot of iterations, that's an investment in itself. And actually, 2 of my personal investments are like that. Yeah. I like those studios. You build better and better dreams every time. So I like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
And we can do both, right?
Is there a way to get the slides?
Yeah. Okay, so last one. Okay. Last one?
Oh, last
No?
It was a small.
Okay.
We are on way.
Okay. We're late. Sorry, guys. You can ask me here. It's okay.